Welcome back to Bazaar. I'm Inko, and we have our fourth hotfix for Season 3. I think these are pretty good changes across the board. The weekend meta should be much healthier than what we've seen over the course of the week. Let's get through it. First off, Rex Packs is being reworked. It's down from gold to silver tier and changing pretty heavily. It's down from a 15-second cooldown to an 8-second cooldown. The base damage has been dropped from, I think, 50 or 100 to 25, not a huge deal. Previously, it had a completely different effect that charged it. Now it has for each adjacent dinosaur or relic. This has its cooldown reduced by 1 second. So realistically, in pretty much any build where you're going to be running this is a 6-second large item now. It no longer has any sort of charging effect. Then as for its damage scaling, it has whenever you use another friend, dinosaur, or relic, this gains 30, 60, 120 damage for the fight. And I think this is like a different weird spot for the card to be than it used to be, right? Previously, it was charged off of friends and scaled off of dinosaurs, and the number was 100 at gold, 200 at diamond. So on the one hand, this sort of feels like a more cohesive design for a card, where at least you can just put it next to dinosaurs and it works. You don't have to have like a friend build, but all your friends are slow because they're dinosaurs, or a dinosaur build, but you don't charge it effectively because their only fast friend is a dinosaur. So with regards to what builds it fits into, Rex Packs has a clearer identity now. I'm just not convinced that these gold and especially diamond tier numbers are particularly impressive. I think I like this design for Rex Packs more than the old one, but I look at the numbers, I'm like, 6-second cooldown essentially, scales relatively slowly. I'm not sold on it yet. Maybe it's not actually meant for a dinosaur build, right? You put it between like a relic and a dinosaur and a friend build or something. I don't know. I still don't think this version of Rex Packs is particularly hot, but this patch isn't really about Rex Packs. Hopefully he's better than he was. He'll definitely see more play just because he starts at silver, which gets us into the Mamasar nerf. It starts at gold now. I cannot overstate how huge of a nerf it is to bring Mamasar back down to gold tier. Additionally, it's a slightly longer cooldown. This is a big deal for making it harder to trigger both Mamasar and Dinosaur in the same fight because they have different cooldowns now, and you might kill with the Dinosaur eat. And then on top of that, its damage scaling I think is slightly worse at gold, same at diamond, not 100%, but the damage scaling is still great. The issue is just you can't find it at silver tier. When you're playing meta scaling dinosaurs, you want to start scaling as quickly as possible and do it the entire game. Just because it starts at gold tier, like yes, obviously you have less time to use it, but more importantly, it's much, much harder to find a gold tier starting item than a silver tier starting item. I would actually go so far as to say that realistically in most games, people are just not going to be trying to force dinosaurs anymore, because if you can only hit Dinosaur at silver, the whole meta scaling strategy is probably super unreliable. And maybe the high roll for dinosaurs doesn't get that much worse, but this nerf is such a massive hit to consistency that it will go from like one of the most common builds on the ladder to actually pretty uncommon to see people forcing dinosaurs. I know that with Mamasar and Dinosaur both at silver, I already didn't like playing dinosaurs because I was so reliant on finding 2 specific items out of a pool of 130. Now with one of those at gold, even if this is just like exactly as strong as it used to be, even if it isn't nerfed at all and somehow at the same win rate, which seems inconceivable to me, I wouldn't want to play it personally. It seems like a super unreliable, super all-in strategy on specific cards, and I would not want to play this. And frankly, that's good, because it means now we're going to start seeing people actually play dinosaurs outside of meta-scaling compositions with Mamasar and Dinosaur. And I think we're going to start seeing that, oh shit, are dinosaurs actually just kind of hot garbage and they're being carried by the 2 vanilla cards? Because I think that's pretty much entirely the case. I do not think dinosaur builds have been good outside of meta scaling at all. And I think we're going to see them really plummet in popularity now that meta scaling is so much less consistent. Moving down to library, now your non-weapon items cooldowns are increased by 1 second. It no longer scales with tier, so I'm guessing diamond tier just continues to nerf opposing weapons. It's a very minor nerf, all things told. I actually had the thought, based on the way that some of the quest items were overly nerfed previously, that they were being balanced around library, and I wanted to see library get nerfed, because it felt to me like for Mac's entire life, every card he ever got would be balanced around the existence of diamond library breaking the game in half. And you can't balance his entire card pool around one increasingly uncommon item with each expansion, right? So even if you think library didn't really deserve the nerf, and which I harshly disagree with, I hope you can appreciate the design space limitations, like all the other cards getting nerfed recently, were to some degree a consequence of a library being too powerful. I think this effect just needs to be rare and not that high of a value no matter what. I think maxing it out at 1 second is probably a good call. And it also mitigates the difference between somebody who high rolls with the library and somebody who high rolls on anything else. Because like so many people have played Mac, got in a great build, it didn't find a library, and then failed to go 10 wins as they match into an opposing Mac with the library, and 2 second cooldown reduction is insurmountable, right? at least in a mirror match. So I think this is a good change, if only for like the health of Mac's design space. It's probably a necessary nerf from a balance perspective, but I just think Library was causing cards to get nerfed that did not need it. Next up, Tomb of the Ancients is going from 6 to 7 seconds, and Blank Slate is going from 5 to 6. They're both taking a 1 second nerf to their cooldowns. Blank Slate probably deserved it. Tomb of the Ancients, maybe. I'll trust they have stats that make that one make sense. I haven't really seen Tomb of the Ancients being too oppressive. Blank Slate, I absolutely see. Because, like, yeah, sure, they killed the freeze builds with it, but it single-handedly enables the Toxic Flame skill to be a win condition. Vital Renewal is insane with it. It's great. And Femur builds, like, Blank Slate still has a home. It's still great. I think it going to 6 makes sense. I'm just not sure I've seen what caused Tomb of the Ancients to get nerfed here. Perhaps the most important nerf of the patch, though, up there with Mamasar for sure, is the Railgun nerf. Its cooldown has been increased at all tiers, not insubstantially either. Railgun is plus 2 seconds cooldown at all tiers now, which is huge at bronze and silver, but still a pretty severe nerf at diamond as well. And its damage is absolutely fucking gutted. In the previous patch, Bazaar.gg is not updated yet. It was 100, 250, 500, 800, right? Coming back to the official patch notes, its old gold damage is its new diamond damage. Remember, Railgun got buffed because it falls off in the late game and they increased late game health values, and now it's worse than it started at. If anything, I think they've murdered Railgun. They hit it on its damage, including its late game damage scaling. They hit it on its cooldown. I really don't know that I think Railgun's going to be super viable after this. Generally speaking, when there are super fast, high damage items that are charged off other things, that's 3 dials you can turn, right? The charge speed, the cooldown itself, and the damage. Hitting it on 2 of the 3 is enough to completely murder a card. I think Railgun might have just died. Like, look at how long and how low the damage is at Diamond. This falls off a cliff now. Basically, if you get to Diamond Railgun by hitting level 13, you're not going to win. That's how I feel about it. If you get it like ahead of time, then sure, great. But even still, right? You look at the old gold Railgun dealing 300 damage now versus 500 previously, right? And in my runs previously, I remember having monster fights that were surprisingly close on level 6. It was like, oh man, 250 is really falling off. I need that gold upgrade against monster fights. And now it deals 50 more damage than the old silver version when it gets to gold. This, on top of a cooldown nerf, no less, right? I mean, Railgun was oppressively strong. Strongest thing in the game, really. This was too far, though. Just like Freeze Mac, this is really heavy-handed. Just like Freeze Mac, I'm kind of glad. I'd like to see Freeze Mac get buffed up, and I'd like to see Railgun get buffed back up. But just like Freeze Mac is pretty much off the ladder, Railgun is not going to be functioning very well right now. This is a really bad state. It's overly nerfed, especially in the late game. Rounding out our changes, we have a couple of pretty minor things. Chimeric Egg now only gives small enchanted friends, so the bug that I've experienced, and I assume several others, where if it tries to give you a large friend, it just fizzles and doesn't give you anything if you don't have the room, that won't happen anymore. But also, it's just generically a worse item because it only gives the small friends now. Schematics, I have long since said, is one of the best economy items in the game because it gives you items of any size and you level up more than once a day, so it was an insane amount of economy. Now it only gives small items. So in terms of economy, decidedly worse. However, while this is a pretty massive nerf, I would say at silver tier, at gold and above, when it's able to give you hologram and fiber optics, and it has a smaller pool of items to pull from now, this is not strictly a nerf. I would say it is meant as a nerf, but for increasing the consistency of duplicating really powerful core items in dueling, it might actually be a buff. And last, and I would say certainly least, Dino Disguise shields for more now. Cool. It still doesn't do anything. The purpose of Dino Disguise is to meta-scale items that are not dinosaurs naturally, and with heavily nerfed consistency of meta-scaling, I'll also note you get this at silver when there's like one silver item that cares about your shit being a dinosaur. Technically, Rex Specs does too now, but he doesn't, like, you don't need Rex Specs to have Dino Disguise for synergy. That's not really the point in my eyes. The idea is like to have Dino Disguise to meta-scale stuff. I guess the ideas are changing with this nerf though, right? That's the old idea. Maybe the new idea is you actually care about Dino Disguise going off because shielding 65 times is enough to matter in 8 seconds. That seems highly unlikely to me, but maybe in a Rex Specs build where you care about gaining 150 damage on a 6-second cooldown. Dude, the Rex Specs looks bad, and any buff to Dino Disguise's completely useless effect will also look bad because it simply doesn't do anything, right? Dino Disguise got buffed. It should be buffed. It didn't do anything, but it still doesn't do anything because you could buff it by 200% and I'd be like, oh shit, maybe that's enough shield to matter. But buffing it by whatever percentage this was is not enough to move the dial off of literally nothing to something that matters. But all in all, I would say it's a good patch. I would say that this is mostly a good patch just because it's shutting down Railgun and Bazaar. These things really dominated the previous meta in a huge way just since Freeze Mat got nerfed until this patch on Friday. Dooley has run the show. I say as much in my Dooley Overexplained that uploaded this morning. And I'm glad he doesn't anymore. Like, I actually just told myself, I'm not even going to try to record until Friday evening. I'm free. I can record on a new patch after the hotfix goes live. Surely a hotfix will go live, right? And that's because right now the meta is just kind of a bit shit. Dinosaurs meta scaling dominated the ladder. Railgun dominated the ladder. So even if I prefer like fundamental changes to game concepts that seem to be pushing the game in a better direction, even if I like, you know, more effective reworks than what I think this rec specs is, and less heavy-handed nerfs than Railgun and Bazaar got. And I should say that starting at gold for Bazaar is a massive nerf when the entire archetype currently revolves around 2 items at silver tier, and that feels like it's not quite consistent enough to be something that's comfortable to play. Moving one of those to gold is not like a minor thing. These are like doing surgery with a butcher knife sort of nerfs. And I'm not generally the biggest fan of that sort of thing. But at the same time, this will result in a healthier meta. I want to see Dinosaurs get brought into line. I want to see Railgun get brought into line. And right now, the most important thing is not to do it like in a perfect balance implementation. It's to get them back down to a power level that doesn't dominate the meta so that we can actually explore other new things. So while I'm not like super thrilled about the patch notes, it is a good change for the game. I think a lot of people will be much happier playing this weekend than they would have if this hotfix hadn't come out. I'll see you out there in the bazaar. Have a good night. Peace.